Hi, and welcome to Tasty Tuesday, brought to you by Transition Nutrition and Fitness Coaching. I'm Angie, and I'm here every Tuesday to bring you a new, delicious, whole food, plant-based recipe that you can incorporate into your family's weekly menu. This week, we're going to be making a carrot cake. Now, this isn't something you would eat all the time because it is fairly calorically dense. But for a special treat or one of those backyard barbecues or special events that you're invited to, maybe even the 4th of July, this makes a delicious dessert that you can take and know that you can eat, and it's completely oil-free and plant-based. So let's get started. There are a few steps we need to take before we begin the actual recipe today. We need to preheat the oven to 350 degrees. You need to take 2 tablespoons of ground flax and mix it with 6 tablespoons of warm water. Set it aside. This will be our flax eggs. You also need to line a 13 by 9 inch baking pan with parchment paper so that we have it ready to pour our batter into after we get our cake mix made. The first thing we're going to make is the frosting because it has to chill for at least 30 minutes to an hour to set up and be firm before we can put it on the cake. So we're going to start with our frosting. You need a high-speed blender. To that, I'm adding 2 cups of raw cashews, not roasted, not salted, completely raw cashews. Then I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of maple syrup. And I have a cup of cashew milk, to which I've already added 2 tablespoons of fresh squeezed lemon juice. That's all the ingredients there are for the frosting. So now we're going to mix that up, and I'll show you what it looks like when we're done. After you've got it all blended, you'll see it's nice and smooth. It does look a bit runny, but believe me, it's going to firm up in the refrigerator. That's why we need to make it ahead of time so that it has plenty of time to chill. This is going to be your cream cheese frosting for your carrot. First, we're going to add our dry ingredients to our large mixing bowl. I have 3 cups of whole wheat pastry flour, and it does have to be pastry flour because it's lighter than regular flour. Then I have a tablespoon of pumpkin pie spice. I have a teaspoon of salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a tablespoon of baking powder, and a teaspoon of baking soda. I'm also going to go ahead and add my 1/2 cup of shredded coconut, unsweetened. And we're just going to whisk all those ingredients together and make sure our dry ingredients are nicely blended. Next, we're going to mix together our wet ingredients. I have 1 cup of cashew milk, to which I have added 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract and 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. Then I have our 2 flax eggs, a 1/2 cup of date sugar, and a 1/2 cup of maple syrup. And now we're going to whisk all of those ingredients together. Now we're going to add our wet ingredients to our dry ingredients. We're going to mix in the wet ingredients just until they're a little bit blended. And it starts to form a batter. Now that we have our batter pretty much mixed up, we're going to add in a 1/2 cup of unsweetened applesauce, 2 cups of shredded carrots, and I do shred my own carrots because the shredded matchstick carrots that you get at the store are too thick, 2/3 a cup of raisins, a 1/2 cup of chopped walnuts, and 1.5 cups of pineapple tidbits. I've tried this with the crushed pineapple, but the tidbits really work better because the crushed pineapple kind of just disappears in your cake and you really don't get that texture of the pineapple. So 1.5 cups of pineapple tidbits, and that's in their own juice, not in syrup, of course. Now we're going to fold these ingredients together until we have a nice consistency for our batter. Make sure you don't overblend the batter or your cake will get too dense and too tough. You want to keep it as light as possible. Carrot cake is a dense cake anyway, but you don't want to overmix your batter. We're ready to put it in our lined parchment pan. So now we're pouring the batter into the pan. You'll notice it is a very, very thick batter. Get all of that goodness out of the bottom of the bowl. And I left the sides of the parchment paper long on purpose so that it will give us a way to lift the cake out of the pan once we've cooled it for a bit and it comes out of the oven, so that we won't have to tip it upside down and risk breaking the cake when it comes out of the pan. You want to smooth it out as much as possible. And we're going to pop it in the oven for 35 to 40 minutes. Again, that's at 350. You want to bake it until it turns a nice golden brown, and a toothpick inserted in the middle comes out clean, just like with any other cake. And we'll be back when it's out of the oven. When our cake is completely cooled and our frosting is completely chilled, we're going to frost our carrot cake. Now this frosting is a little bit thinner than a typical canned frosting, but it makes an excellent, excellent frosting for this cake, and the taste is just delicious. You could always add a little bit less milk if you wanted it a little thicker. I kind of like mine to run over the edge a little bit and to drain down the sides. But this cake is so delicious. You could take it to any outdoor activity or picnic or family gathering, and nobody would ever guess that they were eating healthy. I did make a double batch of the frosting because I wanted to make sure I had enough to let it run down over the sides. But the amounts that I gave you in the video are for a double batch. And if you wanted to make a two-tiered carrot cake, you would need this double batch in order to cover all of the cake and the layers in between. You could also make cupcakes out of the same recipe. You would probably just have to reduce the cooking time and check them a little more frequently to make sure they weren't getting overdone. But as you can see, the frosting runs over the edges very nicely and coats the entire cake. Now I like to decorate it with a little bit more chopped walnuts and just a sprinkle of carrot shreds. So I'll be right back. So here we have our finished carrot cake decorated with a few extra walnuts and some beautiful carrot roses with raisins as centered. We're going to do a plating now and show you what it looks like when you're ready to serve. But before we do, I want to thank you for tuning in today, and I hope you enjoy this recipe as much as my family does. Every once in a while, everybody deserves a special treat, but why not make it a healthy plant-based treat? So until next time, remember, plants are the best medicine.